and so I said to Scott, well, we have to work with that, and we have to make peace with that for you, because he said, oh, I don't think I'll suicide, but I actually get why so many people in my family have done it. And so we went back and we made peace with the past, even back as far as his great-grandfather. We made so much peace with the past, and then he had actually had a lot of stuff stolen as a young man. He had bought a motorbike, he saved up, and he was his pride and joy. He still rides motorbikes, I might add. You've got to get how much he loves motorbikes. It was his pride and joy, his very first one that he'd saved up and bought on his own. He went off on an adventure with a friend, came back, and his father was showing him the new tractor on the farm, and he kept saying to Dad, okay, that's great, Dad, but I want to go and get my bike. And his dad said, oh, do that tomorrow. And so he spent the evening with his dad. The next morning he raced out and said, Dad, where's my bike? And he said, oh, where you left it. He came back and said, where's my bike, Dad? I can't find it. He said, where have you moved it? He said, I sold it. He said, what do you mean you sold it? He said, well, I needed the new tractor. So I sold your bike and put the money towards the new tractor. I'm very grateful to Robert for even coming to Adelaide in the first place, and for continuing to come back and to believe in us here, and continuing to give the gift of FasterEFT to us. He really is the master at it. He can get people into trance and clear their stuff like no one else can. So I really request if you have something you want to work on tonight, tonight's the night to start. So thank you. You can all put your hands together and welcome.
Thank you. So excited to be here, I think. So how are we in Australia here? All right, all good? Good on you? I've been in Australia, I don't know how many, like 5. I started coming in 2010, I believe, was the first time. And I was in Oklahoma, and we had snow, about a foot or so worth of snow. And I'm thinking, you know, I like white Christmas, but I prefer white sandy beaches in Australia. So I put the YouTube out saying that, and then 3 weeks later I was in Australia, gave a presentation in Melbourne. The reason why I do the work I do is because, first of all, I had problems. Not that I still don't, I do, but they're a little bit different than what they used to be. But what I discovered is how to get control. You know, our typical coping style of dealing with our problems is divert attention, pretend like it's there, do something else, eat it, drink it, smoke it, do anything, but deal with what the problem is. Because when you're born into this world, those who raised you had no skills of dealing with their problems either. They just stayed busy, they diverted their attention, they thought about something else, did anything but deal with the cause of their problems. And so, are there really any problems? And the answer is definitely is no. There are only undesirable successful outcomes. We all learn how to deal and cope with our world by what we've experienced and how we represent those experiences. So what I have discovered is how to change my world, how to improve my world. I know that Heather, she's a minister, and so is her husband. Birthing therapies, energy therapies, and they did all this stuff, and they still got the problem. But there's something that's missing that solves the riddle. And that one thing is, what are you doing inside you? Because I understand that you are very successful. In order to be successfully depressed, you've got to have programs within yourself. You've got to say things and imagine things and reproduce things within yourself. But then again, what are you doing? What I did is I began to discover the mechanics of thinking. Began to understand how we successfully create and manifest pain, emotions, fears, and phobias. As a matter of fact, what we have within us is what I call is the superpower law of attraction machine that is always manifesting, producing beyond your conscious awareness. Because see, you're doing it and you don't even know what you're doing. You know, because I work with some really big issues. We're not talking about little stuff, you know, like small spider fears or small this or that. We're talking about people who've been raped, beaten, abused, severely traumatized, had all kinds of medical problems, and been in military, and saw people, their buddies and all this die. And they've been to the experts. And yet within this one guy I worked with in the military, he saw all his buddies killed. And that's the reason why he started using drugs. He couldn't deal with the pain. As a matter of fact, the stories he told me, he could never tell anybody. I was the only one and the last one that pain had never been there. Because we went to the memory. In less than 5 minutes, the trauma, PTSD, he couldn't find again. He couldn't even say what it was. And he told in detail. I said, does it bother you? He says, no. It's so strange. Because see, this is what happens, is when you think, your mind is using its resources to produce what was recorded when it was recorded and make real what seems to be real today. And it distorts our current meanings and feelings that we have right now. So that means why you're... And matter of fact, they go everywhere you go. You know, I have a son, my oldest son. I have 2 sons that I'm aware of consciously. You have to think about that one. And my oldest son, now, his dad had problems. I'm first to admit I had problems. I still do. They've changed in different styles and ways now, not as bad as they used to. And so, Dad, I was a bit like a dad. You know, my dad, he was worse, a lot worse than I was. I mean, he'd beat you at the drop of a hat. He was angry man. He was the no man, and all this stuff. So I feel like I was a much better dad. But you ask him, his dad had problems. Definitely, I was the boss of the house. You know, I was the boss. I was a bit controlling. Not so much anymore, I don't think. So here it is. He's my oldest, and he had to live with his dad. And of course, his dad had his problems. I became Mr. Mom actually when he was 2 years old. My wife gave birth to the second child. We didn't want to put our kids in daycare. I was in college. She had a good job, so I went to college at night and raised the kids during the day, and my wife took care of them at night. And then eventually got too much, and then I just started buying and selling cars and doing whatever I could, but I still raised the kids. And so Dad had his anger problems because I learned from where I come from, and my dad had a lot of anger problems, and mine definitely has toned down tremendously. But his dad actually changed. I actually changed when I discovered EFT, NLP. And I started using it. But here's the deal. My son, you know, here he is. He's 32 right now. And before that, you know, he gets a job, and this woman who's the boss, he says she's so controlling, so manipulating, and always undermining him. So he quit, and he went to another job. And it's a different job, and he thought, well, maybe it was the job that's what the problem was. So he went to another job, and guess what kind of boss he found? The same person. And his first wife, my girlfriend, they had a child with, guess what she was like? Same person. And I said, Adam, there's a common denominator amongst all the relationships, and that's you. Now, granted, it's modeled after his favorite dad. Now, granted, bad memory programs, can you use those programs to feel bad? Of course. Now, by the way, while sitting here, you can feel bad. How do you do that? You go back and remember a bad memory. Next thing you know, the program kicks in and you start to feel bad. Now, here's the problem with programs. They're all sitting there on the shelf waiting to be used. Next thing you know, you're driving down the street, and a song plays on the radio, and memory pops in, and whenever somebody did you wrong, the program kicks in. You start to feel bad. Am I making sense? So what happens if you decide to change all the programs? There was a young man, his name was Jonah. Now Jonah, he was severely depressed. He was so depressed. He was very suicidal. He wanted to kill himself. He had fibromyalgia all through his body. And he had a playlist on his iPhone, and he would listen to, and it would depress him even more. All right? So here it is. He has a ready-made depression system already ready to play. Now here's the problem is, he drives around, he walks around, and guess what happens everywhere you go? There seems to be somebody playing what? Music. So now he's out there having a good time, someone plays a bad song, guess where he goes? Down. You see it? But so here it is, songs affect him and make him feel bad. So what should he do? Wear earplugs everywhere he goes? Is that going to solve the problem? Or avoid all radios and destroy every one of them? Or better yet, why don't you go and change the program? Now, how many of you know that when you listen to someone on the phone, when they call you or when you're driving to work, you feel bad? Or when your ex-husband or your ex-wife or your son-in-law or your daughter-in-law that you can't stand, she's around, you feel bad. Is there really power in that? Do you realize that that's just a program and it's yours? And it means you can go and change it. So inside your head, you have visual programs. Also inside your head, we have what you call auditory programs. That means inside your head, you can listen to a song and feel bad. It'd be nice, you know, it's like, you know, the guy said, why do you know, here you have a bad day, you go home and you give it to your wife. You just chew her out and yell at the kids and beat them, whatever. And he said, why don't you just stop by and yell at a tree? I mean, granted, the tree probably sure wasn't dying, but at least, you know, your family would be a lot better off. All right. Of course, the guy whose mother would drink before she came home, he says, I'm so thankful she drank before she came home. At least when she was drinking, she wasn't beating us. All right. Now, of course, it could be the other way around for other people. When they drink, they beat you. So it depends on the program. So inside of you, you have what we call kinesthetics, or feelings. Now, some people do not have what you call very clear pictures in their head. They got strong body reactions. Well, the body reaction is an unconscious, metaphoric expression of the memories. And you'll feel it in your body. Now, the interesting thing about body reactions, sometimes they have meanings that don't make sense to you consciously. To the unconscious, it makes its own sense because it has its own data. Also, inside yourself, we'll test this one. Everybody take a deep breath, close your eyes, and yeah, you're a small child. And guess what? You smelt it before you got home. They were cooking it, and you definitely don't like it. And you know what they made you do? Sit at the table and do what? You know what it tastes like and what it smells like, don't you? How many of you can actually smell it and taste it? Can you? I hope we put it right in front of you. You can see it too, can't you? By the way, is it really here? You just experienced two more types of memory, taste and smell. Each of these memories control your physical reaction, emotional reaction. So now we have 5 types of memory in which your mind will use to control you. But here's the problem. You don't know how to change your mind. You can probably change your tire, put gas in your car, drive your car better, you can drive your own mind. Now that's a sad state in Australia, to not be able to change your own mind. And it's not just Australia, you know that. It's every country I go to because people haven't been taught to change their minds. There's one more piece I want to share about your brain that you don't know about yet, and it's what I call the great programmer. We call it the programmer or the organizer. Now what this part of the brain does, it organizes all the memories in its own unique style and way in order to produce something. So that means whenever how many of you remember trying to learn how to drive a car? You remember the first time? Of course, the interesting thing for me, I learned how to drive a car. The first car I ever drove was a Volkswagen. All right, and by the way, my dad was a very angry man. You know, I was scared of him. And so here it is, I'm sitting next to him. He backed over a few times. I'm just kidding, slightly. But you can tell her emotional dynamics is totally changed. I mean, you know, Judy's sharing about her life change with FasterEFT. Now, what is FasterEFT? It's just a thinking system showing you how to get control. I pulled up in the chair. 45 minutes later, she's trying to find her back pain, and she couldn't. She went to her hotel room that night, and she continued typing and cleaning up everything that I didn't get to in 45 minutes. The next morning, she did yoga exercises in front of her husband on Skype because he was still at home with the kids. And he's shaking his head, he can't believe it. She feels good, she's smiling. She stayed there for the 7-day training, and I showed her how to continue healing and change her life and how to manifest the life she wanted. And by the way, she was in bed. She couldn't move. Her outcome was going to be more surgeries, more pain. But it ended. She went, her husband and her, they went to Africa for mission work. And then from Africa, they went to Hawaii, and now they live in Hawaii. And she's doing sessions. She's a minister there. She's working, and she's not the same person. I have tons of video proof of what I'm talking about. Her life completely changed. It's because she made a decision. I want to change my own head. And that's what she did. Now, the weird thing is she went home. Now, she's a part of a church group. Now, you know, there's all kinds of people come here. Because, see, what I do is I'm very neutral. I know how the brain works, and it fits into any system. So she went, and then Tiffany discovered that Heather had healed herself. She said, what did you do? So Tiffany, too, came to Oklahoma. I didn't know Tiffany. I pulled her up, and I did the same thing. I tapped on her, and her pain went away, too. And guess what Tiffany's doing? She was so deeply financed with all the credit cards, paying for all the medical expenses. They were so in debt. And today, or just this last month, she was in Hawaii. She's volunteering at a drug rehab, and she said, we're almost debt-free. We moved our home, we got a car, we got a new home, our life has completely changed. She's making she started at $250, so $125 an hour doing sessions with people all across the world with FasterEFT. And guess what? She can stay home and watch her kids too. Now that has totally wiped her life out, totally different than what it could have been, because she too had a bleak future. There's so many other people. So why does this work? Why does it work? Because inside your brain, you have neurological information. Physical pains is created in your mind through hypnotic trances. How many of you have ever been sitting there talking to somebody and they're talking about a cold they have? And they're talking about the symptoms, and when you get off the phone, you start to feel like you got the symptoms too. Because from 0 to 10, let's say it's a 10, and you built your life and it has all these feelings. When you're 22 years old, you go visit a memory. What happens when you visit a memory at 22 years old? You still feel what? Bad. 33 years old. You go back there and you visit, what happens?
Right.
Feels bad. And here's another thing. I'll tell you a little bit of a little secret. I know how you make bad memories worse. I can teach you how to do it. Probably you've already done it. 44 years old, go back to the memory, and guess what happens? It still feels bad. Now, inside of a single memory, remember what I said about memories? Memories are programs. Inside the program, it has value system. This is a relationship I have. Now let's think about it. When I'm 33 years old, or 44 years old, or 22 years old, and it happened when I was 11, when I watched the movie inside my own mind, who is the movie director of your memories? Who? Not me. You didn't listen to the question. Who are the movie directors of your memories? I am. Aren't you? All right, so that means if you go play a memory, what happened to you when you was 12 years old, and it's crappy, who's doing it to who?
We are.
Exactly. Now, who is beating me with the hammer when I play my memory, or when you play your memory? Who's doing it to you?
We are.
Exactly. And who's practicing and rehearsing a value system of being a victim? Who is?
We are.
You are. Stop it. It's crazy. By the way, if you hold these memories inside you, guess what your gracious, most powerful source within you does? It says, fine, we'll create with it. Do you hear what I'm saying? Fine, I'll create something with this. Fine. He's driving down the highway. His wife is looking at him like, what the hell's your problem, she says. Why can't you pass the lorry, which is a big Mack truck in our country? He can't pass it. She goes, what's wrong with you? He said, I don't know. She says, you need to go see Robert. All right, so he calls me up, says, hey, I got a problem. I have panic attacks. I'm going to have a heart attack and die. I can't pass a Mack truck, which is a lorry in your country. All right? I said, okay, what I want you to do is write a list of every bad driving experience you ever had with Mack trucks and anything on the school, on the highway and driving, all this stuff. So he comes in, he has 4 things on.
That's right. Sit down that a little while.